Hey, we're going to start singing together. Friends, you want to stand. Can you hear me? Follow me, the Master said. We will follow Jesus by His word and Spirit led. We will follow Jesus. Still for us He lives to plead. Oh, at God's throne He does intercede, offers help in time of need. Oh, we will follow Jesus. Should the world and sin oppose, we will follow Jesus. He is greater than our woes. We will follow Jesus. On His promise we depend. Oh, He will nurture and defend, help and keep us to the end. Oh, we will follow Jesus. Though the way may dark appear, we will follow Jesus. He will make our pathway clear. We will follow Jesus. In our daily round of care, oh, as we plead with God in prayer, with the cross which we must bear, oh, we will follow Jesus. Ever keep the end in view. We will follow Jesus. And all His promises are true. We will follow Jesus. And when this earthly course is run, oh, and the Master says, well done, life eternal will have won. Oh, we will follow Jesus. Amen. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Riverbend. Maybe like me this week, you're carrying some burdens. Maybe it's some things you did and you failed with, some ways other people failed you. Maybe things going on in the world. Well, join me in singing this old song. And let's take those burdens to the Lord. If the world from you withhold of its silver and its gold, and you have to get along with meager fare, just remember in His word how God feeds a little bird, and take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, leave it there, and take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. And if you trust Him through your doubt, He will surely bring you out. And take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. And if your body suffers pain, and your health you can't regain, and your soul is almost sinking in despair, Jesus knows the pain you feel. He can save and He can heal. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, oh, leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. And if you trust Him through your doubt, He will surely bring you out. And take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. When your enemies assail and your heart begins to fail, don't forget that God in heaven answers prayer. He will make a way for you and will lead you safely through. So take that burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, oh, leave it there. And take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. And if you trust Him through your doubt, He will surely bring you out. And take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Let's go, Jacob! When your youthful days are gone and old age is stealing on, and your body bends beneath the weight of care, oh, He will never leave you then. He'll go with you to the end. And take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, oh, leave it there. And take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. And if you trust Him through your doubt, He will surely bring you out. So take that burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, oh, leave it there. And take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. And if you trust Him through your doubt, He will surely bring you out. And take your burden to the Lord and leave it there.
God, we take a deep breath and ask that you make us aware that you're in this room. Just I encourage you wherever you are, just get comfortable, be in the physical position that allows you to just let go. Standing, walking, sitting, laying down, whatever it is. The thing I'm constantly reminded of when I get to show up here is that we live in this world that's just full of who we call God. In us, around us, through us. It's in our relationships, in our pain and our suffering, in our joy and in our peace. So often we're busy, distracted. So God, we ask that you calm our minds, that we can experience the depth of who you are while we're all here together.
I wonder if we'll ever find our
You make beautiful things out of us. All around, hope is springing up from this old ground. Out of chaos, life is being found in you. But you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. Yeah. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. You know, each one of us has this thing that's been burned down. Each one of us has a history with something that didn't go the way that we thought it would go. Some of us have pain that we live with and that we're probably going to be living with the rest of our lives. Some of us have pain that we can't seem to let go of. I know I do. I want you to think about that, and I want you to think about the fact that we follow this spiritual path that says, if I allow it, that pain can be turned into something absolutely gorgeous. It makes no sense, it's illogical. But we have to allow it. We have to sort of surrender to the idea that it can happen to each one of us, that we're worth it. Each person is worth God constructing this beautiful piece of art with you called your life. And the contrast of that pain and suffering, the depth that it gives you, the passion, all the things that will come from it if we just let it become. So I want you to sing this. Sing this out. You make me new. You are making me new. You make me new. You are making me new. You make Amen. You may be seated.
You are the reason for life, the air inside my lungs. You've taken hold of my heart, and there's no doubting that your love is unexplainable, phenomenal. And what your grace has done is nothing but a miracle. So tell me, how could I ever turn away from you when you've always been the way, the life, and the truth? You've given me a new, true reality, living for the one who set me free. You've given me a vision better than a dream. You ain't gotta wake me up, it's not a fantasy. My friends keep saying I've changed, I'm acting different now. They wanna know what I know, they want the truth, and so I told them, if you're free on Friday, come to you with me. Leave your past right at the door, and you'll never be alone. Give me a new, true reality, living for the one who set me free. You've given me a vision better than a dream. You ain't gotta wake me up, it's not a fantasy. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, summer camp. Who remembers going to summer camp? Come on, raise your hand. Yeah, our student ministry just got back yesterday. Great job, Ren, on that. And they had an incredible time. You know how you can measure whether or not youth camp was successful? We'll take my two daughters, for example. They came home yesterday morning. I picked them up here about 8 a.m. I got home, and by 10 a.m., they were in bed asleep until 10 o'clock last night. Woke up 8 and then went right back to bed again. And I think one of them was still sleeping when I checked with my wife. So that was an amazing week. They had an amazing week. And not only did they build relationships with one another and with God, but like my daughter said, she said this quote, "We became a family." And I thought that was pretty cool. And so again, if you've got a student in your house, you got a middle school, high school student, man, can I just encourage you to encourage them, to nudge them along, to get connected, get involved with our student ministry here. I was a youth pastor for 25 plus years, then a college professor, training people to be youth pastors. And I can tell you this with all honesty and sincerity, that I think our youth ministry program here at Riverbend is one of the best in the country. It really is. And so if you've got a middle school student or a high school student, I'm not just saying this to blow smoke, man. I really honestly believe that what we're doing in our student ministry here at Riverbend is top notch. But not only that, our kids ministry as well. As you heard last week, we had an amazing week of VBS a couple weeks ago where kids were challenged to bring in tennis shoes or shoes. And we partnered with an organization called Souls for Souls. And to date, I think maybe as late as Wednesday, there should have been or could have been a few more that trickled in, but I know the number was about 1,300 pairs of shoes that have been donated so far. That's amazing from our kids, right? And our families. And so it's not too late. If you have tennis shoes or shoes at home that you're looking to donate, bring them in. We'll still take them, and we'll partnering with this organization, and they'll take them, and they'll send those shoes across the world, across the United States and across the world, to kids who need them, to families who need shoes. So it's not too late to donate. This last Friday night, just a couple days ago, our children's ministry also hosted another event called Friday Night Fun, where you can register your kid. It's like $12. They do them about once a month, and you can go on a date night or go out to dinner, go see some friends, whatever you want to use for this time. And we had over 50 kids signed up just for this last Friday night. So they're doing amazing things in our student ministry and in our children's ministry. Not only events, but discipling kids and pointing them and teaching them and showing them Christ's love. But that's not all. Parents, listen, we know how important it is that you are the main disciple maker of the life of a kid. The statistics are that in a church experience, we will get them, that is the pastors, the teachers, the Sunday school teachers, will see your kid, including camp, about a total of 40 hours throughout the whole year. That's how much Pastor Ren and Susan and others are going to get with your kid, about 40 hours of discipleship. Guess how much you as an influencer in the family are going to get? 3,000 to 4,000 of indiscretionary time in the life of your kid over the course of a year that you could use as well to disciple your kid, to build character into your kid. And so as Riverbend staff, as pastors here, Pastor Todd and myself, man, we want to help you with that. We want to encourage you in that way. We want to give you resources and tools so that this is not only for parents, but for grandparents and for others who are influencing that kid's life. We want to provide resources and tools to encourage you to be able to do just that, disciple your kid. So one of the ways that we're doing that is this September 9th and 10th, we're bringing in a professional. His name is Dr. Stephen Argue. He's from Fuller Youth Seminary, and he has written a book called Grow With. He's written a lot of other books as well, but he's a professional in adolescent development and just helping families and parents to navigate those different seasons of life. So if you are a parent let me just ask this. How many of you know a kid? Like, just raise your hand, be honest. You know a kid, whether they live in your house or not, you know a kid. You should be here. Okay, so uncles, aunts, friends, parents, whatever it might look like in your home, realize that, again, we live in a world that's not always just mom and dad at home. There's others that are influencing the life of a kid. This is for you, okay? It's a Friday night, Saturday, where we're going to hear from Dr. Argue. We're going to hear from some of our own pastoral team as well, through some breakout sessions and things. And so I just really encourage you to come and be equipped. Be equipped. What is it that this generation needs to know? Again, I used this example earlier that if you have an 18-year-old in your house and you have a 13-year-old in your house, how you were parenting your kid when that oldest kid was 13 is different than how you should be parenting that kid who is now 13. Culture is changing that rapidly. And so things around them, what they're experiencing as a 9-year-old is different than when they're 15 or 18. And what we want to do is all throughout those different seasons of you parenting your kids, of coming alongside those kids in your house, is to help you, resource you, encourage you in all those things. And this event is going to be that. So there's flyers around the auditorium. There's flyers at different places in the kids check, everywhere. You're going to be hearing about this for the next few weeks because we really want you to come register online and be a part of that weekend with us. Other things as water baptisms as well. We're doing a water baptism in July as well. If you've never followed the Lord in the water baptism, we encourage you to do that. What a great example of your faith, an outward expression of your faith, of an inward reality of that so for your kids to see. And so if you've never been baptized in water, we encourage you to go online, get information about that. That's coming up here in July. Let me transition again and pray for us now as we think about our offering and giving of our tithes and our offering. There's multiple ways to do that here at Riverbend. On the mezzanine level, there's black boxes. You can drop off a gift there, your offering there, or online, or you can go to the app, or you can text it in as well. It's to 84321. So we want to thank you for your giving. We want to thank you for your generosity and your faithfulness to that. And so let me pray for us this morning as we think about and reflect about our giving and our sacrifice. God, we thank you for that. We thank you for that opportunity that we have to come and give to you. We thank you for the sacrifice that we have to give of our time and of our resources. And we thank you for the generosity that Riverbend has been about. That story that's been written about Riverbend is one of generosity. And so I pray that, God, going forward, we would continue to write that story. We would continue to see your hand moving in the lives of people that are here inside Riverbend, but those who are outside, those in the community who have yet to come to hear about you or come to want to investigate you or want to come to follow you. That Jesus, in all these things, that they're made possible because of those of us who are faithful in our tithing and in our giving to you. So God, we thank you for that. We celebrate that. Jesus, we ask that you be with Pastor Dave now as he teaches and he instructs us from your word. God, we love you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Are you a good person? Not a complicated question. Are you a good person? Yes or no? Now, it may be a little more complex than you first realize. It's a little tricky. It depends on who you ask. It depends on what you mean by good. But straightforward, straight up. Do you think you're a good person? I thought I was a good person. If you had asked me as a teenager, 14 years old, if you had asked me, Dave, are you a good person? I would have said, yeah, I'm a good person. But when I was 14 years old, I was a thief. You see, in my early teenage years, I had developed a hobby, and my hobby was shoplifting. And over the first few years of my teen existence, I got rather good at shoplifting. And I recruited my little brother, who was 7 years old at the time, to help me out. And he asked me one time, he said, Dave, isn't this wrong? And I lied to him, and I said, no, I talked to the manager. He said it was okay. And I remember as I look back on it, I remember being afraid from time to time, having some fear of getting caught. And I got caught a couple times, but I talked my way out of it both times. And I wasn't really that afraid. And as I reflect on it, I realized I also never felt guilty. I never felt any guilt about it. I never felt any shame. Even though I felt bad for recruiting my little brother to help me out, it worked, and he was pretty helpful at stealing stuff. But as I thought about it, I realized how easy it was for me to rationalize it, how easy it was for me to justify doing something wrong. Because you see, I said in my own mind, I'm only taking things that I want. Things for me, things that I can't afford. And I don't want to pay for them, so I'll just take them. It's not like I was stealing every day and selling them to buy drugs or anything like that. I wasn't a bad person. I just took stuff that I wanted, didn't want to pay for. It was easy. Last week, we began a study. It was more of a search, actually. A search for our souls. A study about the science of our soul. What is our soul? What is a soul? And I propose that we understand our human existence in more than material terms. That we are more than just a bag of chemicals. That our human existence is not just biological. There are immaterial aspects to what it means to be human. And this is consistent with our modern understanding of our human existence. Most people understand that we are not just a human natural organism. We have a mind, we have a consciousness, and we have a psychology. We have emotions. We are an intellect, an emotion, and a will. And we are physical, emotional, and intellectual. And this is completely consistent with the view that the Bible has of our human existence, because it sees us as made in God's image, in the Imago Dei. And God is a triune God, and so we are fashioned in body, spirit, and soul. But what is our soul? What is it? What is it made of? And what is the evidence that it even exists? And to understand this, we've been taking up the instrument of the Bible to look behind the veil, to look behind the curtain, to say, what can we see? What does the Bible reveal to us about our souls? And we're specifically looking through the lens of the 19th Psalm. And last week I suggested that as we examine through the lens of Psalm 19, the existence of our soul, the first thing that we see is that our soul exists because we have a comprehension of, we have an appreciation for, we can identify, we can even create beauty. That beauty is an evidence of our soul. It is something that resonates with us. Not because it's pragmatic or because it's practical, but simply because it's beautiful. And we have this amazing ability to create beauty, not just appreciate it. Well, today I want to suggest a second piece of evidence for the soul, and that is the necessary existence of morality. That we as human beings need meaning. We need purpose. We need direction. We need boundaries. We need rules in our lives. We are moral beings, and our morality is a reflection of our souls. Now, you could argue, I've met people who are immoral. I have met people who seem to live without a conscience. I have met people who are amoral, but I would argue in a circular a priori fashion, much like Descartes in the early 1600s, that morality is a morality, the absence of morality is a morality. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am, that all of us as human beings, what it means to be human is that we all fashion a morality, and we live according to that morality, according to that purpose, according to that meaning, according to that sense of right and wrong and good and bad. That none of us can exist in this life without some sense of place and purpose. And as we are looking through the instrument of the Bible, specifically through the lens of the 19th Psalm, we notice in verse 7 something very peculiar. Because in the words of Psalm 19, David, the songwriter, says, "The Torah, the law of God, is perfect, and it refreshes our soul." I want to pick that apart. I want to look in depth at what he's saying. I want to examine. I want to go into the laboratory and tear apart what it means and how we know that we are operating from the place of our soul. But before we put on our lab coats and we go to work in this investigation, I'd like to pray. Would you pray with me? Father in heaven, I would ask that the words of my mouth, the meditations of my heart, would be pleasing in your sight. I ask that you would use your words spoken by your servant and anointed by your Spirit to remind us that we don't have to be right, but we have to be good. Pray that for myself and for my family and for all of us here, for I ask that in Jesus' name, amen. The first week in May, in 1970, there was an anti-Vietnam War protest in a small community 40 miles south of Cleveland, Ohio. It's estimated that on Friday and Saturday of that first weekend of May of 1970, almost 3,000 people gathered to protest the war in Vietnam in the little town of Kent, Ohio. By Saturday morning, the crowd was so large that they began to vandalize the buildings in downtown Kent. They broke windows and smashed doorways. In fact, that morning, in Kent, Ohio, the ROTC office was set on fire. In response to this, the governor of the state of Ohio mobilized the Ohio National Guard and sent them to the campus of Kent State University. The students were planning to mobilize for a protest on the following Sunday and Monday, but the government printed up 12,000 leaflets, distributing them across the campus and throughout the town, saying that the protest was canceled for Monday morning, May 4th. Monday morning, May 4th, there were 77 Ohio National Guard troops on the campus of Kent State University, and a gathering of about 200 to 300 students were there. They faced off for most of the morning, trading insults and throwing bottles and cans and rocks at the guardsmen who stood with their M1 rifles protecting the buildings of the Kent State campus. No one to this day knows exactly what happened, but at exactly 12:24 in the afternoon, shots rang out on the Kent State campus. The later investigation would reveal that 28 of the National Guardsmen fired 61 shots into the crowd of 300 student protesters. The volley of shots lasted a total of 13 seconds. When the gunfire ended, 9 of the students who were protesting on the campus were wounded, and 4 of them were killed. In America, young American soldiers killed American college students. We have a tendency to think that the division that we are seeing in our nation, the hostility, the incendiary conversations are unparalleled in our history. But if you examine the history of our country, and you examine, in fact, the history of any free people, you'll find that every generation rises up and pushes against the norms and the standards. And in that search for their own identity and their own morality, there is passion. And there is an incendiary tone, because what is in play, what is at risk, is the soul of a generation. What is in play in our day and what is at stake is the soul of our nation. And our souls have a passion that is attached to it, and that's how you understand the evidence of the morality of our soul. You see, the first evidence that leads to this passion, why are we so divided? Why are our conversations so violent and so incendiary? Why are families split in two, and communities and friends no longer speaking to each other? It's because we're not arguing about ideas anymore. We're not having conversations that have to do with things that are good or bad, even things that are right or wrong. We've gone into a place where we are moralizing our conversations. We are now having conversations about things that are good and evil. And if they are in fact evil, they must be stopped. And for evil to succeed, it is for good men and women to do nothing. And so it escalates the conversation, because the battleground we are waging these conversations in is the battleground of our souls. They're no longer ideological or sociological or political conversations. They're spiritual conversations. Because we're not talking about things that we know, we're talking about things that we believe. And if there's anything I'm familiar with, it's theological and spiritual and religious arguments. I know it when I see it. Because when we talk about issues of our soul, these are issues about the very meaning of our life, and they inspire deep passion. There are things that we cannot not believe. This is the passion that you see in David's writing. In fact, in verses 7, 8, and 9 of Psalm 19, David throws out a virtual word salad. He can't control his enthusiasm. His passion is overflowing. In verse 7, he says, the law, or the Torah of God, is perfect. It is without flaw. And that it is useful for refreshing the nephesh, the soul, the inner being of all human beings. He then goes on to express and amplify by repeating over and over the same idea. He goes on to say the statutes of the Lord are trustworthy. The word is aman, and aman is a Hebrew word for a pillar in a building. That means the morality of God is foundational. And it's so foundational, he says, it makes wise. And I know you're looking at this and you're saying, oh, that's the Hebrew word chakam. I recognize that. That means wisdom, right? Well, that's what it is. It says making wise, and it's translated in a lot of biblical translations, the simple. But that's not what this word means. This word has this idea of the teachable. of the person who is open-minded. You see, the morality of God matters to the person who is willing, who is open to being taught about it. He goes on to say that the precepts of God are solid. They are foundational. The precepts of God are true and trustworthy, and that they are bringing joy to the lav, to the heart. He talks about the soul and the spirit and the mind and the heart. He goes on to say that the commands of the Lord are barach. They are illuminous. They are polished. They allow us to see an image of ourselves, bringing light to the eyes, he says. And the fear of God, the ra'ach of God, is sure. It's pure. It's so pure that it's without end. It is everlasting. And the ordinance of God, or the decrees of God, are emet. They are truthful. They are reliable. They are completely honest, and they are tzaddik. They are righteous in all things. And what David does is he uses 24 different words to describe this idea of the power and the passion that he has for the morality of God, that it resonates in his soul. It's like if you sat down to a table and you had one of the best meals you've ever had, you would pour forth adjectives. You would say, that was delicious, that was spectacular, that was marvelous, that tasted better than anything I've ever eaten. My taste buds are exploding, they're tap dancing on my tongue. You would struggle to communicate just how you were feeling it. Like if your wife came down and you were going out and she looked marvelous. And you said, you look amazing, you look beautiful, you look gorgeous, you look spectacular, you look hot. And that's what David is doing. And he puts an exclamation point on it in verse 10. He says, you want to know how meaningful this ordinance of God, this perspective of God is? It is more precious than pure gold. Not just gold, but refined gold. Gold that is made into fine jewelry. It is sweeter than honey, and not just honey, but honey straight from the hive, straight from the honeycomb. And David's morality is a transcendent morality. And it guides him through his life. You see, this is the cry of our soul. The cry of our soul is to know that we matter, is to know that our lives have meaning, is to understand that we have purpose. We don't just exist. We have a mission, we have a purpose, we have a calling, we have a reason. And when we find that, that's the thing we cannot not do, the person we cannot not be. It resonates with our soul. And David said it's Yahweh that gives it to us. Because there is one word that's repeated in these 3 verses 6 times, and it's the word Yahweh. It's the law of the Lord, and it's the statutes of the Lord, and the precepts of the Lord, and the commands of the Lord, and the fear of the Lord, and the decrees of the Lord. Because that's his source. That's his true north. Is there anyone here who knows how to use a compass? And not a compass that you draw circles with, like a compass on a map. Does anybody know how to use a compass? Like on a map? Why? Have you not heard of Google Maps? Do you not have a phone that has that on it? Because Google Maps is amazing. We were using it, Diane and I were using it all over Europe. And like we were in Barcelona, we said, how do we get to the Sagrada Familia? And you just type it in and it shows you, and you just walk. We're in Rome, how do you get to the Trieste fountain? And just showed us the path. We're in a little Italian town called Menaggio, and there was a Yelp-reviewed restaurant that we wanted to go to, and it showed us how to climb up the mountain to find this little out-of-the-way restaurant. In fact, we were in France. We were in Bordeaux, France. And we were in Bordeaux, and we were in a little town called Saint-Emilion. And we went to Saint-Emilion because a Riverbender, a friend of ours named Bill, said, this is my favorite town in all of France. And so when we got to San Emilion, he was right. It's like a movie set. It's like out of Disney World. It's perfect. It's a perfect little French village. And I took a picture of the plaza in San Emilion, and I sent it to Bill. I said, you know where we are? And he texted me back. He said, yeah, I know exactly where you are. But here's where you need to go. You need to go see a friend of mine who's a wine merchant there in San Emilion. Well, San Emilion isn't that big of a town, but there's dozens of wine merchants in San Emilion. So I typed in the name of the place, and it came up on Google and said we were 100 yards away. It was right down the path. And we walked in there, and he said, tell him I sent you. And I walked in, and the owner was sitting at a desk, and I said, Bill sent me. And he lit up. It was like I said the Pope had sent me. It's like, Bill from America. We love Bill from America. And the manager, Ben, came over and says, oh, you're a friend of Bill's. He gave me a 2-hour tutorial in Bordeaux wines, and it was delicious. But if I didn't have that orientation, if I didn't have that direction, we would have wandered all over San Emilion. Instead of turning left and going right to it, we might have gone right and gone down the hill. We could have walked all day. Now, granted, there are worse things to do than wander around a picturesque French village on a beautiful day. But that's how a lot of us live our lives. The cry of our soul is for meaning and for purpose and for direction. And that's what David is celebrating. David is celebrating this idea that the orientation of God, the morality of God, gives him a true north. This is why he exists. This is what he lives for. It is who he cannot not be. And so he orients his life accordingly, and he celebrates that. He celebrates it in verse 7, where he says that this morality of God, this Torah of God, this guidance of God is perfect, it's beautiful, and it refreshes my soul. It gives my life meaning and purpose and direction. And you see, this is the evidence that we are more than just chemical beings. We are more than just animals that are born and live and die. We have a mission, we have a purpose, we have a reason to live. It's not just the beauty that we recognize, it's the morality that guides us. But what difference does it make? What difference does that make in light of what's going on in our world today? And you watch the news the last 72 hours, and you see how incendiary our cultural conversations are, how divided our community is, our city, our families, our nation. You look at it, and when I look at that, I see our souls in play. I see what is at stake is the soul of our community, the soul of our city, the soul of our nation. Because we're crying out for meaning. We're saying this is good and this is evil, and we have to align ourselves accordingly. And the interesting thing is that I see people building their associations and homogenizing their relationships. And they listen to people that agree with them, and they hang out with people that think like them, and we create these echo chambers that reinforce our own personal moralities. And don't get me wrong, that's a wonderful thing. I mean, I would much rather hang out with people that agree with me than people that disagree with me. I would much rather hang out with people who said, you're right, you're smart, than people who say, you're wrong, you're an idiot. And I noticed that this is how churches associate themselves. And I have many friends who are pastors in good churches, pastors in this city of great churches. And they come out and they say, we are positioning ourselves in alignment with this point of view. Or we position ourselves with the opposite point of view. And if you agree with us, come and we will gather together, because there's safety in homogeneity. And I'm thankful that there are churches that can do that. There are churches that that stand up and say, if you believe like us, if you think like us, if you have the same soul as we have, the same values that we do, let's congregate together. And there's safety in that. And I understand that we need a break. We can't live in the turmoil of the disagreement all of the time. You see, conventional wisdom says that when you make your associations, you should pick a side. You should choose a team. You should take a stand. And people will tell me all the time, they'll say, Dave, that's the courageous thing to do. You have to pick a team. You have to choose a side. You have to take a stand. That's brave, and that's bold, and that's courageous. But I would suggest that what is even more courageous is not to tear things down, but to build things up. Not to be a troublemaker, but to be a peacemaker. Not to burn buildings, but to build bridges. And you see, that's our mission. That is the soul of this place. You may not realize it, but you are seated among your enemies. You are seated among people who disagree with you, violently disagree with you, politically, ideologically, socially, even theologically. I know many of you well enough to realize that we have people with strong feelings on both sides of every issue. But it is not our mission to say those who agree are welcome here. It is our mission to say that we don't have to be right, but we have to be good. You see, the true north that David is talking about when he talks about the Torah, when he talks about the law of God, he's really talking about the heart of God, the character of God. Who is the God that we align ourselves with? And the God that we align ourselves with is the God of the Torah. Because there was a young rabbi, his name was Joshua ben Joseph. You may know him better as Jesus of Nazareth. And as Jesus was alive and teaching, there were religious skeptics, those who came from their homogenous point of view, and they confronted him. And there's one time, it's in the 22nd chapter of the book of Matthew, a religious scholar tries to entrap him, and he says, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the Torah?" So Jesus quotes the Torah. He quotes Deuteronomy chapter 6, word for word. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. This is the greatest commandment. This is the centerpiece of our soul. This is your true north. And then, not just to leave it as a horizontal thing, not just as a vertical thing, he makes it horizontal. And he quotes a second verse from the law, from Leviticus chapter 19. And he said, there's a second piece to it. And it is equal to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. That is, love your neighbor as yourself. And he says, all of the Torah, all of the law, and all of the prophets, and all of the songs, and all of the poetry, and all of the thoughts are built on these two things. What he is saying is you don't have to be right, but you have to be good. On that Monday, May the 4th, 1970, on the campus of Kent State University, there were 300 students who thought they were right. They were convinced they were right to protest the abomination of the conflict in Vietnam, the deaths of their peers. And on that campus that same day, there were 77 young National Guardsmen who knew they were right. At 12:24, when the gunfire broke out, there was a young photojournalism student taking pictures. His name was John Philo. As he approached the end of his roll of film, he snapped one final picture. It was a picture that when it was printed went national. It was on the cover of Newsweek magazine. In fact, it won a Pulitzer Prize. It is a picture in the wake of the 13 seconds of gunfire of a young woman named Marianne Vecchio, kneeling with her arms outstretched and pain etched on her face as she knelt over the body of a fallen student named Jeffrey Miller, a young ROTC student who was shot and killed by his friends and his peers. There were plenty of people on the Kent State campus that day who knew they were right. What there needed to be on that campus that day was people who knew they were good and who were willing to be good and do good. If not then, when? If not there, where? When my oldest daughter, Kaya, was 17, she was caught shoplifting. I know, the irony doesn't escape me. And it was on a Sunday when she was caught shoplifting, and you have to know my daughter Kaya, she is sassy to this day, but she was with her youngest sister, Caitlin, and she was called out or arrested by the store manager, and they had a discussion, and my wife was called, and that Sunday I was at church all day, and I didn't know that any of this had happened. But when I got home that evening, I walked in to the living room, and there were my 3 daughters sitting on the sofa, and their faces were tear-stained. I could tell instantly something was very wrong. They had all been crying. And my wife was seated across the room, and etched on her face was the "wait till your father gets home" look. And I walked in the room, and they told me the story of Kaya being arrested for shoplifting. And in that moment, I got to tell you, I didn't know what the right thing to say was. I didn't know. I knew what the wrong thing to say was. The wrong thing for me to say was, "There's a chip off the old block if I ever saw it." Man, let me tell you, like father, like daughter, huh? You know what they say about apples and trees? That was not what I was going to say. But I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what the right thing was to say. So I said to her, "Get in the car with me." And we got in the car. We drove across town. And I was just buying time, and we got to the Lexus dealer in Plano where we lived, and I had talked for 6 months about how much I would love to buy a Lexus. I think they're beautiful cars, but we can't afford it, and I always wanted a Lexus, and wouldn't it be great if we had a Lexus and Lexus this and Lexus that? And I drove to the Lexus dealership, and it was closed, and we walked around the parking lot just looking at these beautiful new cars, and I was trying to think, what is the right thing to say? And so I never figured out what the right thing to say was. But I think I figured out what the good thing to say was. As we got back in the car and we turned for home, I looked at my daughter. I said, "Kai, you will always live your life wanting things you can't have. They will always be around you. And you have to come to terms with that. And you can't let that shape your life." And then I said to her, "But you have to know this, that no matter what, I will always love you." I don't know if it was the right thing to say, but I know it was a good thing to say. You see, we are called as a community of faith, not just to be right, but to be good. If not here, where? If not us, who? So I ask you the question that we began with. Are you a good person?
Amazing grace, how How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing your praise than when we first begun. I have this hope as an anchor for my soul. Through every storm, I will hold to you with endless love. All my fears swept away, in everything I will trust in you. There is hope in the promise of the cross. You gave everything to save this world you love. And this hope is the anchor for my soul. My God, I stand unshakable, unshakable. will lead me home. May we see this come true in our lives. May we see us doing this for each other, for ourselves, for our families. May you see God working that in you. You guys go in peace. Feel God around you this week. It's great to see you. We'll see y'all next Sunday. Your name is higher, your name is greater. All my hope is in you. Your words unfailing, your promise unshaken. All my hope is in you. Your name is higher, your name is greater. All my hope is in you.